Delegated authority resignation. So in our last meeting, Chase stated that Shepke Consulting would be resigning as delegated authority for Houghton Lake and Lake St. Helen. So we have to decide first and foremost who our delegated authority is going to be and the next steps that we need to move forward. I had stated originally that I felt that the board should be named as the delegated authority. Ultimately, the responsibility falls on us, and I think that we, in our next meeting, should be naming ourselves like we did on the Higgins Lake one.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I agree with that. But I also think we need to be aware we may need to hire out some of this for us. Even though we are delegated authority, we may have to hire out some consulting or some other services like administrative services or something in the process. It's nothing more than what we hadn't been paying for anyway. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's just assigning it to different entities or
I would agree with that because in the list of things, I know that when I had spoken to Chase, I know that with you and I being on the lake level committee, he was going to sit down with us and go over where things basically are and what may be in the future that we may or may not be totally aware of. We also have to figure out the lake level website, who's going to have access and manage that, who's going to be managing emails and the voicemail, phone calls, everything of that nature that we have going on, along with hi-fi and getting that information put over onto the county website.
I agree 100% with both of you on this. Can we hire Chase as a consultant and have him do a few of them duties?
we can definitely talk to him.
I'd be 100% okay with something like that.
Because some of the duties needs an expertise like he has.
You're right.
I mean, not all of them duties can be just assigned to somebody else, just, you know.
I can't make motions or anything, but I would recommend that the chair and the vice chair have a talk with Chase and.
The other thing would be, do we want to go out for bid for a delegated authority at all?
Chair?
Yes.
That was where my next question was. I mean, it ultimately falls with the board as a whole, and if there's not a delegated authority, we have to do that temporarily at least. And I think putting that back out to bid is probably in our best interest to find a person who could possibly help that. I'll be honest, I'm not sure how many people want to raise their hand after being sued and thrown under the mud all the time, but maybe we can find somebody. And at that point, then we can make a decision about what role that can play, if we need consulting, if we don't, and figure out what our role will be if we get somebody or if we don't get somebody.
Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, we could speak, or the chair and vice chair could see if he could take some of them roles on and can put an ad in the paper.
Are you thinking more temporarily?
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Say, can you consult with us until we identify a delegated authority? Is
yes.
That, okay.
Consistency is key. Put out for bid and talk to Chase.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments, questions regarding?
Madam Chair, in that conversation, I'm sure as we think about transition, I think it'll be important for us to share what's happening in this transition period so people aren't going, who's doing what, are you, what is that transition? What's the timeline? When are we going to put out a bid? I think that needs to be articulated at one of our next meetings, so just to give that plan.
Yep. What we can do is Commissioner Wolfson and myself, we can look over the original bid that we originally put out, see if we want to make some adjustments of that nature in our next meeting, maybe verify and then get that put into the paper as soon as possible, if the board is in agreement with that.
Sounds good.
All right. The next is the Higgins Lake level control structure temporary renovations. The last meeting, I brought up that we were going to have to make some decisions regarding Higgins Lake and how to move forward. Based off that conversation, I did ask for a formal bid from Prine and Newhoff regarding the hydraulic analysis and what would be contained in that. Originally, they estimated $10,000 for that bid, but I would like to see a formal bid and the breakdown of what is included in that bid. I've asked them to do that as soon as possible so that the board can make decisions and get moving on that. Other than that, I am still a believer that we should be moving forward with the assessment role on Higgins Lake and continue on with that process.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
You know, at the last meeting, I did bring that up. We need to move forward. If we're planning on doing anything with Higgins Lake, with the control structure there, we need to. I brought it up at the last meeting that we need to move forward with this and just not sitting around, not doing nothing. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think what we need to do on Higgins Lake now has come to the point where we do need to come up with a computation of cost and so forth and get it, you know, the assessment roll together so that we can continue moving forward, because now we're getting into some serious engineering studies to be able to get to keeping our lake level where it belongs.
And I know that in the past, our main objective was to keep, as far as the methodology that was used on Lake St. Helen and on Houghton Lake when doing the assessment role, has been pretty consistent, although we do take into consideration each lake individually. And I think that we should continue to be doing the same to keep things consistent.
Madam Chair, I would agree with the consistency. I think we mentioned that even prior. I don't think that's new. The methodology, the process should be similar, although results of studies and whatnot dictate what that structure or what we can do on each individual lake. That process is only fair for everybody who's on those lakes as well. So I'm in full agreement to follow the same process and procedures. We have to move. There's got to be a stake in the ground. 3 lawsuits on this already have just derailed us and cost us money. We are not going to make every single person in this room happy. It just won't happen. We've got to come to some final decision on what's the best for the future. And I will say, not just today, but when I'm not sitting in this seat or any of us aren't sitting in this seat, what have we done that will help us in the future, that's sustainable, that can be not just temporary and waste money? So I'm in support that we've got to start moving forward, even though we're not making that decision today. What that is, the process I'm good with, not delaying. We've got to make a decision. And yeah, there's other things in this county that deserve attention. We hear it every day when we're out in the public from people who don't feel like we care, because all we talk about, and they are important. Do not get me misled out there in the audience. The lakes are important, but there are other things that are significant in this county today. We can't be afraid. We have to make a movement. So there's 2 things that I think get a little bit confusing to people. It's not which aisle is right. What will Eagle approve, and what will the judge approve? That, whether we like that process or not, it is what we have to go through. If not, we will continue to be in lawsuits, drag our feet, and it'll be another 4 years down the road. I don't want this position to be in, I don't want us to be in that position anymore. So we've got to work on the things that Eagle's going to need. You know, I know that one of the processes for that is just trying to work with the relationships that we have, the partnerships that we have, build that rapport. Fighting them every step of the way has not been helpful. So I think that it's using all of our resources, trying to understand, move that needle faster, in my mind, is part of that strategy moving forward, because we need to get a permit. And if that goal keeps changing from Eagle, or the goal keeps changing from anybody who wants to sue, that doesn't help. We need to know exactly what Eagle wants so that we don't keep going back, spending money to redo things over and over. And I think we have good enough relationships with people, our legislators, people in those departments, that we can continue to mend that and use that to our advantage. My take.
I would agree with that, Commissioner Morley. It has been frustrating, to say the least, a little bit working with Eagle, that they say they want something, we've done that, and now they want something else. I think we need to find out from them everything that they are going to want and request in order to be able to move forward, instead of submitting and then have to resubmit and resubmit. That takes time. It takes away from the efforts that we're trying to do, and hopefully we can get that information so that we can make the best possible decision in a timely fashion.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
To move forward with the assessment role and computation of cost, do we need to have a resolution come forth at the next meeting?
We will need a resolution at some point to come forward, probably at our I don't know if it'll be the next meeting or lake level control structure meeting, but yes.
In the last meeting, I stated that the perfect cure for Higgins Lake lake level is a clean slate on the structure. And that entails designing something that'll achieve the lake level as we need it, and also getting approval from Eagle for such structure in the process. And that all comes in the designing phase. And because right now in St. Helen, they're designing it and then they're submitting it to Eagle to see if they approve what is. And it's all a long process, and we all got to work together on getting there. And so that's quite a project. I mean, it's going to entail a lot of time. It's going to entail a lot of money. And in order to move forward, I think we're going to have to do the assessment role and just trudge forward and try and take care of this matter.
Madam Chair, is there, help me understand too, because I think there's been questions about, you don't have a project. But if I understand the process correctly, every phase, whether you set the boundaries, that's project one. Then there is a computation of costs and working on that, the role, the assessment role. Every piece of this phase is a project in itself. Am I correct? That's the way I've been informed as well. So knowing that that's another phase and the next step to that, then it does make sense. It's a project of itself to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Any other?
Kim, Madam Chair, Kim did a great job expressing my thoughts. So as good as not better than I would have done. The one thing that I'd like to hammer home is the fact that this is a process that requires Eagle and the courts. Often people come up to me and go, why don't you guys just do this? It's not that easy. We have to work with the Eagle and we have to work with the courts. And I think sometimes people tend to realize that it's not just us to make the decision. This is a joint effort.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's not just us. There is a process, and we do have to go by that process. It doesn't move as quickly as I would like the process to go by any stretch of the imagination. But we have to take the steps as they come. And unfortunately, we're not always in the driver's seat on how fast they move forward. When we submit stuff, we have to wait, just like the formal bid. It's, I requested that after the last meeting. We have to wait for the engineering firm to get that formal bid and have everything spelled out, just like the surveys that are going to be required. If that structure up at Higgins Lake is going to maintain the legal lake level, it obviously has to be designed differently than what it currently is. And that is going to take studies downstream to verify how much water is going to be required to be let out. Is it the current amount that they're requiring? Can it be less than that amount? Are we losing more than what they're requiring? Only the studies are going to be able to tell us that, and we're going to need those studies.
Is it, Madam Chair, is it also not true, because, I've got binders, there's been studies for years, right? So it's not like we're without studies. It is really what Eagle is requiring in order for them to give you a permit. Those are the studies that if we don't have, those are the ones we need to pay and do. It's what they're requiring, not what everybody else has gathered over the years. Is that true? Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
it is a process, and the process starts here.
Yep.
Regardless of how long it takes, it starts here.
I would also recommend that we think about the communication process that we have done over the past. I think it is, no offense to any of the past, but it allows a lot of misinformation. And I think we've tried really hard to listen, but not shared a lot of some of the facts that we have had. And I know our chair is working through that. I think that's an important start to this communication and making sure that people are very aware of what's transpired, where did we get it, how did we get to this point, and then what is our plan going forward, and maintaining that conversation and keeping abreast of the timelines, the decisions. And I know it's over-communicating, but I think that that will help us through this process and minimize as much miscommunication as possible. And maybe that's a piece as we start here to move forward, that we do a little bit better job at making sure that's communicated well. My take.
I would agree.
Not that I'm a communications major, but just it's going to be important as we move forward, keeping people abreast. And even sharing it at our townships. And when we go, it's not just the people who show up here, it's the people who are out in the community asking questions, but they're not here. So we can do a good job at getting out in front of them as well.
I agree, communication's a big role. If you don't have that, then the first liar wins.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? And I think we kind of have an idea on how we want to move forward for our next meeting and what's going to be required, and we'll get that stuff taken care of so that it's in the appropriate packets.
Yep. That's the next coming work session, or do we kind of have an idea of? Probably have to have a motion.
Yep. Well,
We need to be ready for that as well. So next regular meeting.
some of the stuff will take place in the lake meeting.
Meeting.
Some of the stuff may take place at the next meeting. It just,
There's kind of two issues here.
yeah.
One is us becoming the delegated authority, and the other is moving forward with the assessment rule.
Correct. So,
And the timing of that, whether it is the lake level meeting or our regular meeting, should be whichever we need to first, so we can move and not
Correct.
put it back out on another month's meeting kind of thing.
correct. Yep. So, okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, and this meeting is adjourned.